Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special event with the inimitable Pati Jinich. My name is Bodan Zachary. I'm at AZPM, Arizona Public Media, in Tucson, obviously at the University of Arizona. And I'm delighted to welcome Pati Jinich to our show. Hello, Pati.
Hi, Boden. So good to see you. So good to see you in Tucson.
Yes, I know. So Pati, before we get going with her show and all her projects, Pati and I go back to 2010. And let me set this up. So in 2010, it was November, December. It was 120 degrees in La Quinta, California, and there were 100 public television executives at an annual conference. And Pati was being introduced to 100 television executives with her then brand new show, Pati's Mexican Table. We were all sitting at tables under umbrellas, melting, but there's Pati smiling and just carrying on a stage and cooking and doing a demonstration in that heat. That's when I met Pati, and she just wowed us then. And it's so wonderful to be able to welcome you to this event, Pati.
Thank you so much, Boden. We go back. So that was Patty's Mexican Table, season 1.
Yeah.
We're now going into Patty's Mexican Table, season 14, this Hispanic Heritage Month. It's
Wow.
insane.
Wow. And I need to tell everybody who's joining us that we're very grateful to Pati. This is 6 p.m. on the West Coast. This is school night for Pati, who's been doing her show all day and agreed to do this event with us. So I'd like to talk to you about Pati Jinich Explores PanAmericana, which is so fantastic on so many levels. But you created it. Talk about how this idea came to be.
Absolutely. So Pati Jinich Explores Panamericana is an outward journey that takes us from the top of Alaska, hopefully, to the bottom of Argentina. And it follows the Pan American Highway. And for those who don't know, because I didn't know before we planned the show, the Pan American Highway is a series of roads and highways that connects the entirety of the Americas, the entire hemisphere, communities, regions, countries, from the top of Alaska to the bottom of Argentina. And it has always historically been a symbol of connection and collaboration. And I got the itch, Boran, to do this because after doing so many seasons of Patty's Mexican Table, going back and forth Mexico to the US, really trying to forge bonds between Mexico and the US and breaking myths and misconceptions about Mexicans in the US and realizing that I was really breaking myths and misconceptions about Mexicans to myself and to fellow Mexicans. That drew me to the border. We did La Frontera, a couple of seasons where I went to Tucson actually for that. And we went from San Diego to Brownsville, north and south of the border, meeting with people from the 31 million people who live in the US-Mexico borderland communities, and really, breaking myths and misconceptions again about the fronterizos and the people living there, people who are contributing to not one but two countries at the same time, and who have this kaleidoscope of identities and culture and languages. And that really made me connect to my full migrant story. I'm a Mexican that moved to the US, but I'm a Mexican Jew who comes from Mexico, who comes from a long line of immigrants that ventured to come to the Americas ages ago, more than a century ago. From both sides of my family, there were people fleeing the old world to what they call the new world, who came to the Americas during different historical times under different circumstances. On my father's side, my Polish grandparents fled Poland in their early 19 teens, fleeing pogroms and persecution, and they were trying to come to the US, but they didn't make it because the Polish quota had been filled. and they were diverted in Mexico. There they landed. Then on my mother's side, it was a couple of decades later, during the Second World War, from Austria and from Czechoslovakia, from the Czech Republic then, it would now be Slovakia. And they were fleeing the Holocaust. And again, they were trying to come into the US, and the Jewish quota had been filled. So they were diverted in Mexico. And both sets of grandparents came to Mexico, loved Mexico, grew roots. Mexico made them their own, and super proud Mexicans. And here I am trying to do right by the country that, you know, gave so much to my family in Mexico. That's why I wanted to be an academic, a political analyst. Decades later, I moved to the US. I have Mexican American kids, and I'm really connecting to what has been the promise of the Americas in the plural sense. You know, this hemisphere, there has been this promise of freedom and security and safety, and where people could thrive. So I have the idea of really connecting to the migrants in this hemisphere, and finding connections in these waves of immigration that have made America their home, trying to get us out of the United States of America, because many parts of who we are connected to the other countries of the Americas. And if we understand those countries, we can understand ourselves better. And it has been really fascinating, Boden, because the findings, the stories, the people were all surprising, all illuminating, all humbling. What I found, I think my biggest finding was that we're all hankering to belong. We're all longing for a sense of home. And that goes for the people who've migrated to the Americas, but that goes for the first people who've been here since times immemorial, the Alaska Natives, the First Nation in Canada. And as we go down, I think I'm going to find similar stories of people who are trying to make their home their home. So anyway, it's been fascinating stories. So that's what started my search for the Pan American Highway.
Well, it's a wonderful series. We'll talk a little bit more. We have a little clip that's a promo for the series. For those who haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to watch it on the PBS app or on TV. And we're heading into episode 3 of the first season. So before we talk a little further, let's take a look at the clip.
My life's work has been about forging bonds between my homeland of Mexico and my new home of the US, bridging 2 worlds and transcending borders. Now, I'm taking that mission further.
Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Connecting 2 continents, North and South America, following a route inspired by the Pan American Highway. And through the journey, sharing lessons learned.
Do not cut, just enjoy. I will be back.
Don't cut the dumpling?
Not cut, just whole thing.
Just eat, okay.
Season 1 takes us to Alaska and Canada, starting in Utqiagvik, the northernmost city in North America,
What's the verdict?
It's incredible.
and heading south to the Yukon and Alberta. Along the way, survival is a uniting force.
When you have major weather, in the end, you need each other.
Resilience is forged through love and kindness.
And these moments with you are purely joyous.
And healing the wounds of the past means addressing them out in the open.
We're dealing with trauma, we're dealing with crisis, we're dealing with all this in our communities today.
Everything you're doing is aspirational.
Join me as we share meals,
Oh!
make friends, immerse ourselves in the cultures of the Americas,
I wanted to thank you. Eating any kind of ethnic food people can get grossed out about, but you've really embraced it.
This is an honor for me.
and reimagine what it truly means to be American.
It's a really sweet era to be indigenous and be creative.
I'm Pati Jinich, and this is Panamericana.
I love the series. I had a lot of tears. I loved the people you introduced us to. In the first episode, where you're going through Alaska and just meeting so many incredible people in so many different places, there's a woman who said to you, people come to Alaska to be involved in the oil industry, the military, to escape, or to find themselves. And that was just such a telling line. And every individual that you introduced us to in that episode, and then the subsequent two episodes, all seem to have great individualism. They are also connected to the communities that they're in, whether it's a tiny little village or it's a bigger city. And you have this ability to find in people that kernel of who they are. And I'd love you to talk about how you interacted with these people and the impression they left on you.
I mean, Bowden, increasingly, I find that the better that I want to get to be at what I do, the more I have to step back and let people talk more and ask less questions and ask shorter questions. But at the same time, I have to find a way to connect deeper because, this is an unscripted show, which means, of course, there's a ton of planning, a ton of pre-production. We plan where we're going to go. We really wanted to capture the DNA of the different places that we're going through and see how they live, what professions they do, what things matter, what's the make of the community there. But once you get there, and our team scouts and we have pre-production calls, and we want to make sure that we have an accurate portrait of the place, that we're not misrepresenting, and once you get there and you get there with the cameras, anything goes. It's not scripted. There's no, we say we're going to go fish with Bowden. Take us to your boat and see what we find. And we'll see. And if, your neighbor joins, or it turns out that a restaurateur that buys your fish was there that day, like, we have to be open to jump into the life of the people that we are able to have them invite us in. But once we're invited in, if you don't deeply connect, you have nothing. You have no story. And in order to connect with the people, I realize that I have to really open up and become raw and vulnerable and open and be willing to share my entire self and just put it on the table. And if you do that, then people truly connect. And what ends up happening is that those filming days are intense, emotionally draining. I mean, there were some that we would end, the day of filming, I'd come back to the hotel and just jump into the shower to cry, because it was so much, so many emotions, such depth of stories. But then I'm always finding the joy. And there's a lot of intensity, and you may make the best of friends and you may never see them again. When am I ever going to go to Utqiagvik or Hollywood Cove, and so I increasingly find that you can only ask of others what you give of yourself. And people really opened up, and it's in that giving. And of course, food really helps. I don't know if you remember when I was in Juno and I was sitting with Jennifer Quinto at the Valley restaurant. She was telling me the story of how her mom was sent through a residential school. I really didn't have that much knowledge of residential schools in Alaska. I didn't know much about Alaska, let alone residential schools. I didn't know about the 60 scoop in Canada. There's so much that I didn't know. she was telling me this story about her mom being sent to residential school and then her being adopted. And we're eating there the most delicious chicken in adobo as we're shedding tears. And as we feel so lucky because we found each other and we connected. And that really pushed the button, Bowden, because I feel like I'm also part of groups, you know, I'm a Jew, I'm a Mexican, I'm also an American. And I've felt the shame and the guilt that society makes you feel because you belong to a group that has been narrowly defined. And so, you know, you connect in so many ways with people, and just like sharing our humanity, and it's just so humbling. And you wish that everyone, and you wish that people in government, and you wish that people making policy came on the road to connect and meet with the people and feel the stories and sharing the joy and sharing the pain. But mostly, more than, oh, you gotta feel the pain, is like find the joy so that we can share the lessons learned. So I find that I increasingly am going into much deeper substance, and I'm loving it, Bowden, because I feel like the older you get, the more you feel like you want to leave a legacy. You want to do things that make a difference to someone. You know, we've gotten incredible emails from people who've told us that they've laughed and they've cried, and they're thankful for both.
I'd love to know how the people that you interacted with, that you got to know on your journey, how have they responded now that you have presented their stories and put them out there nationally?
I mean, it's been incredible. Just a few hours ago, I don't know if you remember the story of the woman, Luan, who I did glass blowing with
Yes,
in Whitehorse.
yes.
And she, you know, they in Whitehorse, they call the homeless people, they call them river walkers because they walk along the river.
Mm.
And the way they deal with river walkers and homeless people in Whitehorse, it is a sight to behold. It is a lesson to learn. The community takes care of them and embraces them. And in turn, they give back. So she gives these glass hearts to, well, there we saw the story of Stuart and how you would think when he approaches people that he would ask for money or beg or bother people, and he's giving them glass hearts. And she sent me an email and she told me that she was getting an insane amount of orders of glass hearts from the US.
Wow.
And that she's so moved that when she did this story, she really didn't expect to get sales from these. She was just sharing her story, and she's a community builder. And in her message, she said that for every order that was coming after the show for glass hearts, that's what people were asking for, she was adding a few extra glass hearts because she wants to help this virtuous cycle grow. So, I mean, it's been great. We've received feedback from many of the people that have that participated in episode 1 and episode 2, and they were like, you guys did a good job. Coming here was hard. You know, Jeff, who we did the dog sledding with, he said that he thought the story turned out great. Thank you for including him. And then he told us more about where he's at now. You know, they're counting whales, they're making sure the levels of whales are at a good level, because they live a subsistence living way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So they need those whales to survive. Just fascinating.
I found that everybody is resilient. Everybody is inventive because they have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is proud of their history and they're happy to share the history. And you accommodated everybody and invited them to share that history. And that's really a wonderful trait that I believe you have.
Oh, thank you. You know, when we were in Juno, thank you so much, Boran. There's so much. I'm so strict with myself. I have such high standards for my work, you know, And when we did the story of the Filipinos in Juno,
Mhm.
which is an incredible story, you know, they're one of the main minorities in Juno, and they give so much, and the food is so good. And I didn't know, and I don't think people in the US know that the Philippines was part of the US. The Philippines was a territory of this country. And so when there were these migrant waves of Filipinos into Juno, it wasn't that Filipinos were like, hey, I want to make my way to Alaska. Is that they were invited, they were brought, they were, you know, and they were a part of the US. And so I think it's things that it's always, I think, relevant and important to have a historical backbone. And you know, they were part of the US when they were in the Philippines. Now they're in Alaska, and the US bought Alaska. So now they're part of the US again. And they want to feel part of the US, and they want to be a part of society and a part of community, and they want to be recognized and not whitewashed. And and they had so much joy, and they're doing such great work, and the food is fantastic. Um and it's just continuing to learn so many things that I didn't know. I had no idea about them.
Yeah. Well, I want to just invite our viewers to get us some questions, which we already have. I'm going to pause and turn to some of the questions for Patti. This one is, how did you get started in TV?
Oh my gosh. Bowden, can you tell them the story? Because you know it better than me.
Patti was studying to become, tell everybody.
I was starting to become a political analyst, and I was working in a think tank here in Washington, D.C. I had a master's degree in Latin American studies, had studied political science, and then moved with my husband to the US. We lived in Texas for a while. Then we moved to Washington, and we always thought we would go back to Mexico. To this day, my mom is hoping that I'll move back to Mexico. And I got really homesick for the food of the country that had nurtured me. You know, I missed Mexico, I missed the food. So I started cooking and a lot. And I realized that I was most comfortable in the kitchen, and that I could make sense of myself as a Mexican in the US, in the kitchen, sharing my food. And I switched careers, and I went to cooking school, and I wanted to be a food writer instead of a policy writer. And then I started getting, you know, people telling me, you should have a show, you should have a cookbook, there should be a Mexican showing a Mexican food. And I got the bug, and I switched.
And we're grateful you did. Let me ask this other next question. What is your favorite ingredient to cook with, and why?
Oh, that's tough. Um, that's very tough. Okay, some things that I always have, and I really die if I don't. One is avocados from Mexico. Like, I have a bowl. I just put it in my fridge because they ripen. I'm gonna show you. Like,
We really are in Patti's kitchen right now.
this is how many we go through in a week. It's so like 10, you know, 8 to 10 avocados a week. And I use them. Today we had fish tacos for dinner, but in the morning with scrambled eggs on avocado toast, avocado soup, on salads. Like, avocado I must have. The other thing that I always have in my kitchen is chipotles in adobo sauce. They're an incredible condiment that you can use for hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, but they're incredible for soups, for stews, for Mexican pasta, for mac and cheese, for so I would say, yeah, avocados and chipotles in adobo sauce. And one thing that I eat a lot are eggs. I think we have eggs for breakfast like 6 out of 7 days a week.
May I ask you an avocado question? Because you store them in the fridge.
So I know I have them outside
Okay.
until they ripen.
Oh, okay.
So once they ripen, if I'm not going to eat them that day, I put them in the fridge. Tomorrow we're going to North Carolina because my middle son is graduating. So since we're leaving in the morning, I knew I wasn't going to eat them tomorrow. So I put them in the fridge so that when we come back on Sunday, they'll be good and ripe and ready.
Thank you. Nancy sent us a note just a moment ago saying, given your family's experience, what advice would you have for modern day immigrants, no matter the country in which they reside and no matter the country in which they wish to reside?
I mean, I think that a migrant, especially a fresh migrant like me, you are the group of people who left the country, which means you're the ones who left. And you're the ones who come into the new country, so you're the ones who arrived. You live in that limbo of you're not from here, you're not from there, you're in between. And that limbo can be unsettling until you realize that you can be a bridge and you can really be a fresh channel to enrich both countries. And I think, my kids, they're already a first generation. And then there's a second generation and the third generation. And I think the hope is that you keep the roots of where you come from alive so that you continue to enrich the new country or the country that you are living in. But that I just think the more the merrier. I see no contradiction in having roots in different places, because that only means that you feel responsibility towards two places and you want to give to two places. And so I think my advice for recent migrants is to really be proud of who they are and where they come from and their roots, and really find a way to have their treasures and their culture enrich their new home. I think that's my mantra. Whatever you have, gift it to your new place.
So I have a question, from somebody who's related to you asked about the shirt, which I was going to tell you about. So Olana from Milwaukee. Oh, Patty. Oh, there you're back. Okay. You're muted, Patty.
Sorry, there.
Okay. So Olana just wrote, do you cook any of your grandparents' recipes from the old country?
Yes, I do. So many, and increasingly so. Both my grandmothers were extraordinary cooks. My paternal grandmother was Polish. She was very humble and made just simple Polish Yiddish food, but so nurturing and delicious. So I make her matzo balls, I make her gefilte fish, I make her potato kugel, I make her chicken. She used to make these chopped egg and avocado salad topped with gribenes, which is like crispy fried chicken skin and onions. She made an incredible chocolate babka that I'm still making to this day. And my Austrian grandmother, she was much more exquisite and her food was much more elaborate. She came from Austria. So she did all these pastries and the apple strudel and the chocolate cakes. And she also made matzo ball soup and gefilte fish, but much more refined. They had such different palates. But she made incredible crispy duck and fabulous schnitzel. And one thing that I make all the time, so all those things I'll make. But the one thing that I make the most is, well, for one, the chicken schnitzel, which in Mexico we have all the time, the chicken milanesa. But also, my Austrian grandmother used to make this soup that's like richly flavored, but really clear chicken broth. And she made these savory crepes that had all kinds of herbs baked into them. And then she would thinly slice them, and those were the noodles in the soup. And I thought that was my grandmother's dish until me and my family visited Austria a couple summers ago, and I saw that soup in every possible cafe.
Gia just asked, how do you nurture and sustain joy amid such challenges?
Can I know Gia's last name? Because I think I know her.
We just have Gia.
Oh, okay. If you're the Gia, my friend, hello, Gia. She's from Tucson. She was living in Tucson, so maybe it's the same Gia. I mean, I think I am a person that I always say this. You know how there's people who see a glass half full, some people see it, see the glass half empty. I see the glass overflowing all the time. That's just me. I'm very optimistic. If I feel more pain, I'll look for more joy. I find that, and this I learned more, recently. When my father-in-law passed away recently, and I completely adored him. And he was this incredible man that left such legacy. His family adored him. He left such a huge example. And when he left, my heart just got bigger. I was afraid of the pain, honestly. We were afraid of the moment he would leave. I was really afraid of the pain, but I realized that feeling that much more pain gave me the capacity to feel that much more love. And I welcome it, Boran. I think there's no joy without pain. There's no light without darkness. And if you want the beauty, you have to see the ugly too. So I take the trade-off anytime. I'm grateful for every day.
I want to add that Gia wanted you to know it's Gia Del Pino.
Oh my gosh, it's Gia. I love Gia Del Pino.
Yeah, Gia.
Gia. Oh, Gia. Hello, Gia. Gia is my friend. Gia was with us when we did La Frontera. She was
okay.
So you were asking me, how do people feel after they're in an episode or after we work together? I think Gia is a friend for life. I can't wait to see her again. So proud of her work, so proud of what she does. Talk about someone with deep humanity who can see the pain in the beauty. And Gia, I think you are an example for me.
I want to forward you a question from TWP, who asks, I greatly admire your sense of culinary adventure and willingness to try new things. In this series, did you ever encounter anything you just couldn't bring yourself to eat? And you smile all the time, so I kept wondering some of the things you were eating.
Yes, there was just one thing. There was just one thing, and that was when I went with my new Filipino friends to the Filipino community center, and we tried two soups. One soup was intestines and bile and some weird things, and that was very intense. That was very acid. And I took a bite, tasted it, didn't want to have it again. And I said, this is very intense and interesting. I did not say, You guys, I will not fake an I will not say yum. If it's not yum, I will not fake a I've been asked, like I go to restaurants or I'll be in a show and they tell me, Pati, can you please give me your I'm like, I need to taste it. But then I tried another soup or stew that was like pig's blood and liver and some seasonings and spices. And that, Bowden, that was delicious.
Really?
Delicious.
Tell everybody on that the clip you're going to see at the end of this conversation is from that moment that Pati just told us about. So stay tuned for the end. I wanted to jump to episode 3, which is about to go live nationally. And it's the third in the first season. And it touched my heart because in Alberta, Pati meets with Ukrainians who settled in Alberta, and a wonderful man, Bernie, who has helped hundreds of Ukrainian refugees whose lives have been upended by the Russian invasion. And it was a wonderful segment to meet all these people, helping one another, carrying on the traditions, having to start life over again. And in honor of that, I wore this Ukrainian hand embroidered shirt.
It's
Uh,
so beautiful.
Thank you. And I'll just tell you the quick story. So Patty came to Milwaukee when I was working at the PBS station there, and we did a live pledge event. And it was a great event. And here's a picture from that event. And this is probably the moment in which we're having a great time. And I say, Patty, you are fantastic. And Patty says, looking down at me, smiling, laughing, Bowden, I've never done this before. And the phones were ringing off the hook, and we had a grand time. So during my time in Milwaukee, the first week I arrived, my name was on in the air because I was the general manager of the PBS station. And that first week, I came back to the office, and there was a tort, an Eastern European traditional, just incredible tort, with a note that said, "Hi, welcome to Milwaukee. You're Ukrainian. I know it by your name." And through that wonderful gesture, I met a wonderful family, the Tashinskis. And when I left Milwaukee in 2020, Alana Tashinsky gifted me this shirt. So when I watched episode 3, I said, I have to wear it tonight to this event. So
Oh.
anyhow, you have connected so many of us on so many levels. And I wanted to go another question. This is one of those I'm interested to know. After a long day, when you get home from work, what is your go-to lazy boxed mac and cheese or cereal for dinner meal?
Okay, I want to get to both of the things you said. First of all, the biggest craving that I have at night when I'm tired, even if I had dinner before I go to bed, is Cocoa Pebbles with cold whole milk. And I never buy Cocoa Pebbles because if I have a box in my house, it will not see a night. Like I just finished the box. But if it's not Pebbles, I'm just craving the Cocoa Pebbles. I love chocolate and milk. But I wanted to get to their Ukrainian stories because they were so revealing and surprising in that, we met these Ukrainian families, and one of the families that is helping newcomers in the Ukrainian kitchen doing those incredibly delicious dumplings, which they've Canada-sized with the yellow cheese, and they're so delicious. One of the things that surprised me is how this woman, Georgia, told me that she was like a third generation Ukrainian, and she and her mom are helping the newcomers who are fleeing the war. And when the newcomers met her, they were surprised to find that Georgia and her friends were still dancing dances and singing songs and wearing costumes that had been forbidden in the Ukraine. And so these back and forth of generations of a culture, I find fascinating that it was a migrant community in Canada of the Ukraine that was preserving the soul of Ukrainian people in Canada. And I'll tell you something just as interesting was when I met with the Filipinos in Juno that are Alaskan Filipinos, and they were telling me how different they are from the Alaskan Filipinos in the lower 48 and from the Filipinos in the Philippines. So I just find all of that fascinating. We all want to hang on to what feels and tastes like home. And I have found that by sharing what feels and tastes like home, that's how I was able to change profession and to get work hard to fundraise for the cooking show because I had a passion for sharing the things that I had nurtured me. But anyway, you had another question.
I wanted to ask, your children, your boys have grown up on TV. How has that experience been for you and then for them?
It has been, my personal and professional worlds are completely meshed. And my show I tape in my home kitchen. Like, I couldn't be more truer than true. This is my kitchen. These are my pots. These are my pans. And I couldn't do it any other way, Bowden, because I'm a terrible liar. So if I were in a kitchen that's a set and I didn't know how to find things and the things didn't have a story, I won't be able to connect. Whenever I tell a lie, my ears get really hot and sweaty and it looks awful on TV. So it's my home, it's my kitchen, and my boys have been a part of the show. In the beginning, I didn't want them to take part because they were little and I didn't want to invade their privacy. But it's their home, If I was cooking, they wanted a bite, or so slowly but surely they started appearing a little bit more, and it's all been a little bit of a like tug and pull, At this point, I would tell you that they come on their show because I think they love me and they want to indulge me, and they know that I have much more fun cooking in my kitchen if it's with them. Like, it's so obvious,
It is.
And I really think they do it not because they want to be on TV. They do it because they know it means the world to me.
Yeah. Well, Oliver just said, gracias, Patty, for sharing your passions for people and food with us all. I live in Tucson, and we want you to come here too, Patty, by the way, just on behalf of
Yes.
all the many questions from people saying, when can we get Patty back here? And it's been fun to watch the boys grow up too.
Oh, that makes me happy. Well, they're definitely 2 heads taller than me, all of them.
Well, I wanted to again say that you are an incredible person. I am so grateful to know you. I miss not seeing you in person, but I know we will soon, hopefully here in Tucson. have you
Yes.
And we'll meet up with all the members who really want to see you in person. And again, Pati Jinich Explores PanAmericana. Episode 3 is upcoming. You can watch it on the PBS app. And I am so grateful that you spent this evening with us. It's late hour for you. I know you're leaving tomorrow on your trip. So I'm very thankful on behalf of everyone at AZPM and in Tucson and everyone on YouTube for being with us. Thank you, Patty.
Oh, thank you, Bowden. It's been a treat.
And to send you off, we're going to watch a clip from the actual episode itself. Thank you, everyone, for being.
The Filipino Community Hall downtown has been a living legacy for more than 50 years, where generations have come together to keep the culture thriving.
So I just remember going in this hall, always playing with my cousins. You see everyone come in here, you greet every single person because that's your aunt, that's your uncle, that's your cousin, that's your grandma, that's your grandpa.
What are we eating?
Yes.
So what do we got here first? This might be chicken.
Today's menu includes classic Filipino comfort food from Carrillos, a street vendor right outside the building. The cooks even use this hall to prepare the food. They're also related to Melvin. He says he's your nephew.
Yes.
Does he behave?
Right now he is. Right now he's behaving.
This is the papaitan.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me about the papaitan.
It's a soup.
And this is the tripe and everything else.
Bile and all that, the intestine.
Oh, that is very intense.
Intestine.
And this
This is the pig blood.
just pig blood.
And then there's liver too.
Pig blood, pig liver.
Yes.
You love it?
We grew up eating it. I'm used to this one.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a Filipino.
Nah, bro, yeah.
I've never seen it.
So to me, it's just like, oh.
How do we feel?
Mm.
Yeah? Right? I'm kind of surprised too. Because I haven't had it in a long time.
It's comforting.
Yeah.
Which one do you like better?
Which one do you like better? This one? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I go with my hand or with it.
Honestly, you could just take it.
Oh, really?
See, we eat like this,
And
or
we
we
all
eat with our
got
hands.
our own.
This is so good.
Patty, you're always welcome here.